Hello everyone, it's Helen at Journaling Planet and it is time for part 2 of my micro tags videos. I will link to part 1 below, but look at my inky hands, you can tell I've already been playing around. I started these videos to essentially come up with a way of getting rid of some scraps, these particular micro tag videos, and whilst the camera's been off, so between the part 1 and part 2, I have done some more work with the micro tags format. If you want to look at how I created the base for these, please go to part 1, and I'll also show you how I made a couple of these, but this was the first method of making them with the masterboard process. Most of these embellishments are scraps that have been stamped upon, or scraps of washi that I've then layered on top of the masterboard. Wherever possible, for the topper of the tag, I've used a scrap that I've just stamped over and inked up. So I'm just using as many scraps as possible, and my scraps pile has already significantly gone down from what it was. Postage stamps have been super useful for this project. They make a really good embellishment on a small tag. I've used them a few times, but as you may guess, as you look at these, I do rely heavily on ink stamps to mark the paper and make it look more interesting. Not absolutely every single one is ink stamped. This one isn't, for example. It's got 3 different postage stamps on it. But if you look in the background of most of these, you can see that I've used my text ink stamp to add a bit more texture. So that's what I've been up to. I absolutely adore these. I can't believe that I made them from scraps of paper. Some of it is scrap paper, but some of it is like old magazines that we're going to go out in the into the bin, well, recycling. Some of them are bits of packaging that we've been sent through the post. Some of them are bits of junk mail. So there's all kinds of things sitting in my scraps box. And this, if you go to the first video, it's about half full now. When I started this project, it was overflowing. So I'm looking forward at the end of this video to being able to put the lid on this box and it will actually close. So this is about the second method of creating micro tags, and I actually love this tag as it is. I'm probably going to only decorate the other side. Look at that beautiful person on a bicycle looking out to the horizon. It's I'll probably just alter it a little bit across the top here and on the other side. So it's just from a thrift store, that one. This was from, you'll keep these, right? These are really good for junk journaling. This was from a case that I bought. So is this. It's the price tag. These are excellent bases for micro tags. I can't remember what this was. Oh, this was also on the case that I bought. Gosh, that case had a lot of different tags attached to it. I'm not sure why it had so many. I think that will do. Well, actually, this was from another charity shop, and look at that. I'm not going to need to actually do anything to that side, am I? Gorgeous. So we'll just decorate this other side and make some micro tags. So I could go through this whole jar. I could go through this whole jar, but I'm just gonna, for demonstration purposes, make a few of these. And it's going to be quite similar to the masterboarding technique, except this time the canvas is even smaller. I don't like this bit of plastic that's sitting in here. The canvas is even smaller because we're literally going to go straight onto the tag. Okay, and decorate that with our scraps, and then look for some embellishments to just put on there if necessary. I haven't put a focal point on all of them. This one arguably the ink stamping is the focal point, but it doesn't really have a focal point. It's still really pretty. So you don't actually desperately need a focal point. But let's start with this one since it's so nice. And I'll just start on the other side. And what I'm going to do is get my glue stick. I'm going to cover it with scraps. And then I'm going to look for some kind of focal point, possibly a postage stamp or some such thing. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm just going to go straight onto the tag. And what else we got in here? That's quite pretty. And could do with one more little piece, possibly something quite plain. A little bit of this would do. It's a little piece of tea-dyed lined paper. Just glue that down, and the first thing I'm going to do is just tear that off there, put that back in my box, and then just trim. I'll need to re-glue this in places, I'm very sure. Yeah. I mean, arguably I don't need to use that whole scrap, even though the idea is to use as many scraps as possible. There's no point wasting paper. Okay, we'll get that glued down and that glued down. And that is a very nice base for a micro tag. And I just went straight onto that, as you saw, straight onto that clothes tag. No messing around with cutting or anything like that, just straight onto it. Right, we're going to let these dry whilst I create the others, but there's the first one. The side says vintage on it. I'm not going to do anything to this, I just think it's so beautiful. And then we'll let that dry, okay? And we'll do another one. I'm going to alter the top of this, but leave, and maybe cover up the logo, but leave everything else because I just love this lady so much. Just love the way she's riding in her bike. Yeah, that could work. That could work nicely. Okay. So the idea of these tags, I sort of hinted at this in the first one video, but I don't think I really said it explicitly, is that I use up the scraps that I have, yes, but I don't create any more scraps, i.e. I don't cut into any new paper at all to make these. So yes, I'll tear bits off and put them back in my scrap box, but I'm not going to cut into any new piece of paper to create these tags. That defeats the object or the objective of making these tags. So just get that glued across there. And since I'm going to cover that back, I'm going to wrap that around. There we go, strengthen that a little bit. And I'm just going to cover at the bottom here this little logo. If I could leave the logo, I think it would look slightly better if I covered it over. Just finding an appropriately sized scrap. I think that will do actually, even though it's not completely covering the logo, that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just to obscure the logo a little bit. So I want to keep this lady in the frame, so we'll do that. And then on the back we'll do the same process as before. We'll find some scraps and just cover the back. Yeah, cover the back of the tag. One thing that when you're working with masterboards, you find you'll always have to go back and glue things down again, because when you cut it, it reveals bits that weren't glued as well as they could have been the first time round. So you always end up going back and re-gluing master boarding stuff. But with stuff like this, there's less to redo. There's not nothing to re-glue, but there's less. There's less to re-glue. I think it's a bit busy next to the other thing. I want a few more neutrals. This will work nicely, I think. Hear my little rummaging sounds as I look for the next good piece of scrap for this project. Just hear me rummaging around. Oh, that's completely wonky. If you don't mind, I prefer it when you sit straight. I know, I'm not supposed to be a perfectionist about this, but I am. I have my standards. They're low, but I have them. Do you know who have the highest standards in the world, and I absolutely love them for it? It's card makers. Their standards are insanely high. Everything on their projects is in its place. Every cut, every stick, just everything. It's perfect. And I've watched some card making videos on YouTube, and it took me about 5 minutes to realise this is not my sport. I do not have what it takes. If you're a card maker and you're watching this, I salute you, because I could not do what you do. I could not get, 12 different cards looking identical with the ink stamp in it, the identical place, and all the different dyes and colours just in identical places. I really don't know how you do it. It is beyond me. I do junk journaling because it doesn't actually matter where I put things. It usually comes out looking okay. All right, let's do one more. Not going to do absolutely every single one I pulled out of the... Let's do this one since it's such a nice shape. I'll put these two back in my jar for another time. It's just, I don't think you need more than 3 for me to demonstrate what I'm doing here. You probably already got the gist. But I am using up so many scraps, and I'm really happy about it. So, let me see. Yes, okay, so the only things that I'm throwing away when I do this is if I trim off the tiniest little bit, like the corner or a real tiny sliver. That's the only thing, like perhaps where it's been a bit rough where I pulled it out of the magazine. That's it. That's the only thing that's going in the recycling. And my whole rationale behind starting Journaling Planet was to reduce the amount of waste that comes out of our household. I can't save everything. You can watch my journaling manifesto, my eco journaling manifesto, to see what I mean by that. But when I started, I was really keen to actually try and save everything. And I'm here to tell you, I wish it were possible. But for one woman who also has, another job, I'm a writer. I write books. I don't, and I have a husband to look after. I don't have enough time to save every piece of paper, and it hurts me to say that because I live by the ocean and I really care about the environment so much. But there comes a point where you have to just accept your limitations, and my limitation is that I can't save every scrap of paper. And I don't like talking about that, but it's true. It is true. And there's nothing that I can do except try and reduce the waste that we do, that we put in the trash. And that's what one of the reasons that I started this whole project. Let's do this. Because I love our planet. I don't want it to go anywhere. I want my nieces and nephews to have a planet. That's my excuse for junk journaling. What's yours? For sitting down with glue. I was so thrilled when I found out that these were recyclable. You have no idea. I was really worried about using glue sticks, and then I found out they were recyclable. I was like, thank goodness. Does anyone else worry about these things? Is it just me? Have I gone a bit too far down the environmental rabbit hole? I don't think that's possible at the minute, is it? Not at the minute. Okay. Hopefully you're getting the gist here. I'm going to just cover the other side and then we'll work with these masterboards. Essentially, that's what they are, these little tags. I'm just going to put these back in my scrapbox, the bits that I can save. I'm sorry, little bits that I can't save. I wish I could save you absolutely every little sliver. I wish I could. It just doesn't work that way. I've learned when I started doing junk journaling and there was just stuff everywhere. Much to my husband's enjoyment. I really like that one. That side's come out so lovely. Okay, I do think this could do with a bit more glue though. For some reason it's not sticking down as I want it to. Just let me see what I can. I don't know if it's cheap glue or if it's just maybe the fact that this is a bit glossy. This card is glossy and maybe it doesn't like the glue as much, but hey, I'm just going to keep putting glue down until you stick. So you may as well give in and just stick. Okay, same process on this last side. I'm really getting low on scraps now, which is amazing. Well, let's take this big piece of envelope. This will cover most of it. Yep, there's very little that I throw away when it comes to paper. As I say, I've had to accept some hard lessons that I can't save every last scrap, but that doesn't mean that I'm just throwing things away. If I think I can use it, you bet it is going in my stash. I wonder what you save that maybe other people throw away. I'd like to know about that in the comments. Do you have something that's a little bit unusual that you save for your junk journal that maybe everyone else throws away? Like I think a lot of people wouldn't keep just this part of an envelope, just the flap. But I'm just like, oh, it's paper. It's paper. It may not be a whole intact envelope, but it's paper and I can use it. So, you know, it's going to be good. Remember, this is just a base and we're going to add to it. So if it looks a bit plain, just remember how the ones that I showed you at the beginning looked, those tags. Those didn't look too plain. If anything, they looked a bit busy. So ultimately, that's what we're going to be going for. We'll be going for something that looks kind of like what you saw in the beginning, using the other masterboard method. See, there's always just a bit that doesn't glue. I'm just going to put so much glue on there, it's not going to know what to do with itself. There we go. Oh, what have we got left? Let's have a look. I think we'll have that down there. Just a bit of tea-dyed, or scrap from a piece of tea-dyed lined paper. I've been dabbling in these things recently. And taking up the entire dining room with tea dyeing because it's space. Everyone who's done tea dyeing knows this. It's space to dry it. That's the problem with tea dyeing. and I hung some of mine out on the washing line. It's just like, we need some more space in here, so I'm going to have to get rid of some of this stuff that's drying. And I'll do that by hanging it on the washing line. That was my solution to the problem. Oh, that's just not quite wide enough. See, this is a slightly bigger tag. This is almost, I mean, let's be honest, this is almost a full-size tag, isn't it? I would say. It's not very micro. This is the black sheep of the micro tags, I've decided. Yes, the black sheep of the micro tags. I'll just take some text then from a magazine and glue that on. Lovely stuff. Okay. And I may add some more scraps as I put it all together. As I start to finish it off and put the finishing touches, like the embellishment or the focal point and the topper and round the edges, around the corners and things like that. But as a base, that will do quite nicely. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to give these a few minutes to dry, and then we're going to have some fun decorating them. Okay, I'll show you the process that I use, and probably I'll use a few more of my scraps in that process. Okay, let's see what we can do with these tags. They've had a bit of time to dry. I'm going to start with this larger one. This isn't exactly what you'd call a micro tag. It does look closer to like a standard size tag, but you saw what it was originally. It was a closed tag, or it was a tag for a case. So it's not exactly, you know, it's not exactly one of the larger tags you'd put into a journal usually. So I think I can just about get away with it. Just looking for some things in my scraps. This was part of a journal page that went wrong, and it was just too nice an image. I think that's going to go very nicely. The only question is if we want a little something extra down the side here, some more pink down here. I'm going to lose some of that when I round the corners, but I think I'll go with it. I'm trying to use up these scraps, don't forget. So everything's about using up the scraps as much as possible. Yes, if you ever have a journal page that goes wrong, I've had a couple over the time that I've been doing this, and it just hasn't worked out, and I've just ended up deciding to basically tear it out. Then you can salvage the embellishments like I did here, and just kind of ink around it to make something a little bit interesting for another project. It was when I was learning how to journal, and I don't know what I was thinking. I was all over the shop with it. It was too thick for the book that the page was too thick for the book that I was working on. And so something had to give. I really love that. It's so cute. Yeah. So I'm going to just do the other side, and then I'll do the kind of rounding off. I do have a sticker that matches with that, actually. Kind of drive-in 1950s sign. But I don't think I like all this space here, so I'm just wondering if I've got any washi tape that will fit the bill. Some of my scraps of washi tape that I'm trying to get through. Let's have a look. This might work because it kind of reminds me, not really, but a little bit of like the diner, like 1950s diner flooring. A little bit. It's not really like that, is it? But you know what I mean. Like the linoleum. Well, that's broken up that white space anyway, no matter what. I wonder if I should put a little bit extra washi along the bottom here. I don't think that really goes with the theme, that's the thing. The spirit of the tag. Just check there's nothing else in my scraps that couldn't be used. Just thinking about a little piece of spare book page or something. I don't know. Just something to break it up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, I don't want to overthink this too much because you know it's not good when that happens. You just spend an age gluing two things down on a tag, and let's just get on with it. This is, I remember, just supposed to be a fun project. Yeah, I'm so glad I salvaged these stickers when I tore out that journal page that went wrong. So everything is salvageable in this game, pretty much anyway. So that works out nicely. Okay, got it. Okay, I like both sides. So let me do some corners. I'll show you the process of how I've been finishing these off. I've been rounding the corners at the bottom. This one's big enough to sew around actually, but I haven't been sewing around any of those because they're too small to warrant getting the sewing machine out. And I just think, where does it end, you know? Okay, so round the corners, and then I've been topping the tags with some more scraps usually, or some very thin, actually I think I'm going to use some of this lovely pearl stuff. I just think it's going to look really cool with her, isn't it? So that's what I'm going to do. So this was just in a thrift shop job lot of trims. I do think it might be a trim, but it looks to me like a broken necklace or bracelet or something. And what I do is I just make my punch hole as usual. This is going to have a real Molly Ringwald from Pretty in Pink vibe to it. If you didn't see that movie, I do recommend it. Picking up the wrong bit of pearl. Right, just going through like so. If I tie a knot in this, let me see, because actually doing it on a bigger card might not be a big deal, but I think it'll be too bulky. Let me see. Too bulky. It's not really that it's bulky, it's just it's not staying, so I'd have to tie 2 knots, and then that is kind of too bulky for what I'm going for. So what I've done with the smaller tags, and what I'm going to do with this one as well, is I'm going to ask for my trusty pieces of thread that I cut off random things that I make on the sewing machine. I know, you probably throw these away, but they can be used for all kinds of projects and for all kinds of little fixes, such as this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the pearls to a relatively even length, and I'm going to lay my thread underneath it. I'm not sure how well you can see what I'm doing here because the thread is very thin, but I'm essentially just tying the thread around the pearls near the punch hole, and I'm going to tie about 3 knots to try and keep it secure, and I'm just going to trim the ends off, and that'll be that. So actually I do want that a little bit further down. You have to manipulate it a little bit to get it where you want it to be. That's it, and then just tie knots in the thread, and I'm going to just trim off the excess. If I do it this way, then it doesn't look too bulky at the top. Otherwise, this stuff does look too bulky when you knot it. And in this case, I would have had to knot it twice just for it to stay in place. I'm not sure if you can see what I've done, but essentially I've just tied the thread around and then knotted it to keep it in place. And I just come in with my scissors and just trim that off. And it goes back into the jar for another time when I might need it. I've nearly used all that pearl trim just on this project, which is great. Why hoard it, I ask you? Why hoard it? So we're getting there. Okay, we've got this really cute little trim at the top. Bring it around the other side. It still looks very cool. And we still need to ink around. This is usually the part that really brings it all together, and you start to see it as a whole rather than lots of pieces just glued to a piece of card. So I really do think it's a great thing to do, to ink it around. I've seen people use shoe polish if they can't get their hands on distress ink. You could use other kinds of ink. I have done in the past, things like the kind of stuff you use for ink stamps and such. But I must admit, this distress ink is one of my top tools. It's in my top 7 tools for junk journaling video, and I'll link to that below. But you'll see that I favour pretty much the same media most of the time, because I might not have a lot of time to craft, and if I use this media, I know I'm going to get a result that I like. So I only got so much time for experimentation. I think that is so pretty, and who would have known it used to be a clothing tag? Nobody. Nobody would have known. Okay, let's have a little look. So what have we got left? We have these two. Okay. I think with this one, to begin with, what I'm going to do is find my text stamp. And I'm just thinking about colour, but I think I will go in with the black, I think. So with these tags being so small, I've taken to laying the tag on, sorry, the stamp on its back and pressing the tag down onto it, just because it's so small. Just seems like an easy way of doing it. And then I'm just going to make an impression down the bottom here. Excellent. So that's a bit of texture straight away. And you'll see I use this technique on many of the tags. I could have used it on this one, but I think it would have been a bit much. So we've got that, lovely. And then, I don't know, I'll just find a scrap and maybe see if I want to do that. I have a little embellishment that I've stamped onto a piece of scrap. So if I ink those up, I think that will work quite nicely. But I am going to ink them up first, as is the law. The 3rd commandment of junk journaling, you must always ink around your ephemera. This is not true. You can do whatever you want. There is no commandment. You're all good. You can do whatever you want. So that will break up the text that I've just stamped a little bit, but that's okay because it's supposed to be more background. So I'll just glue that down first. And then I'll take a look at this stamp that I've done, this embellishment, just on a piece of scrap. I'm trying to use scraps for the embellishments as well as for the backgrounds, so that I can use up as many scraps as possible. I still think that does need some inking around just a tiny bit. It will make it blend in more, but it just doesn't quite look right without it. So we'll just put that on. have a look. Jaunty angle. I'd like it as a jauntier angle than that, if you don't mind. There we go. Okay, very simple, but that's okay. And we're not done yet. Yeah, this was the one with the one that has the nice vintage pattern on the back. So, same process as before for finishing it then. And if you think, folks, that these are just pieces of scrap paper and they would have ordinarily sort of ended up in the recycling, but look at what you can create from them. It's just really quite wonderful, isn't it? I think that's so cute and really vintage looking. Okay, we have one left, and I'm not going to do much on this side, I don't think. I maybe will stamp across here. Okay, that could be more perfect, but it's fine. I like it. We're leaving that like that. You know, I just had to war to get that off the acetate, so we're not doing too badly. So that's that side. I'm just going to give that a second to dry, and then I'm going to consider this side in terms of a embellishment. I think maybe we'll be looking at another ink, postage stamp, or following in the ink stamp theme, I could stamp something. These two sides of the tag are not going to be related to each other, but I could I really want this to be a good imprint. Can you tell? Okay, let's see how this comes out. Not bad. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So that ink stamp can be put away. My acrylic block can be put to one side for now. I should have used it all the way through this process, but was very naughty and didn't. So, in terms of topping it now, because I have quite a lot of space here and I don't want to cut off this, so I'm going to have to think carefully about that. I think what I'll do is I'll do a little paper tab at the top, and I'll think of something else to go here. It's not going to be the sturdiest tab in the world, but since I'm not going to use it as a, I don't know, building block in a building's foundation, it should be fine. It's just going to sit in a journal, so it should all be fine. It's not going to be up to anything particularly exciting, except sitting in a nice journal. Okay, we've got one last step, and that's to ink all around, and then we're going to be looking at our tags. Okay, I just love that I was able to keep this beautiful lady on here. I haven't cut my corners. This is the first, no, it's not the first time. It won't be the last time. But I didn't cut my corners. Usually cutting corners is a bad thing, I know, but in junk journaling, not so much. Corner cutting is in fact encouraged. Okay, that side is looking pretty sweet. I can see that isn't glued down properly. Why? I go to the corners, I tell you. I go to the corners with my glue. I think that looks adorable. Just adorable. And now I'm going to go to the back and ink that. And I bet this isn't glued down either. Oh, it is. Okay, just to prove you wrong. Ink around here and around. There we go. Last finishing touches. They're looking beautiful. See, I knew there'd be something that wasn't glued down properly, and it's the washi tape. I found you. I see you. Gotcha. How are we doing it this side then? Bit of glue there as well, huh? There we go. Okay, you know, I think that looks pretty cool. And would you ever guess it used to be a clothing tag? I don't think so. Okay, let's look at all the ones we've made from clothing tags. So, this one, so cute, from a tag for a suitcase. Lovely kind of 50s vibe. Really enjoying that one. Not functional particularly because it's covered on both sides, but you know, I'm okay with that because it looks so pretty. This one also not functional because it's covered on both sides, but again, it's a very, very pretty embellishment. And this one is also covered on both sides, but only because it was such a nice design on this back I didn't want to get rid of. In fact, I didn't ink around that, but that side, and that's just something it's missing. So I'll quickly do that. And then, now that we've done that, I'll just show you that on the other ones, I didn't embellish the backs. When I did the masterboarding, what I did was I collaged bits of paper bag and packaging material and scraps of tea-dyed paper, little scraps that, you know, otherwise I wouldn't really be able to use, and those you could write on those. So there's plenty to work with there, and you could sort of throw in one that you could write on and one that you can't write on. But considering this is just scraps, I think these are pretty exciting and wonderful, but not quite as exciting or wonderful as what's about to happen on screen right now. And that is that I am about to close my scrap box because it is no longer overflowing. Look, it clips down. I used about half the box on making these tags and making the embellishments for these tags. So I hope this has been inspiring. Please do tag me on Instagram at JournalingPlanet if you try this technique. I would love to see your creations, and do also let me know in the comments if you've thought of any other tag related use for your scraps. I love tags. I'm slightly obsessed with them. I confessed in the other video, the part 1, that I don't really make clusters, but I adore tags so much. So I'd love to know what other scrapbusting tag techniques you use in your junk journaling. Please do let me know in the comments. I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.